The vote was swift, but its consequences would echo across the stars. When the High Chancellor's gavel came down, sealing Earth's fate, the decision felt almost mechanical, a cold, logical conclusion made by those who had never once stepped foot on the fragile, volatile planet they'd just condemned. "Earth's fate is sealed," Cyril said quietly, his voice heavy with the weight of a decision he had never wanted to make. His eyes flickered toward the Shaurith Dominion's representative, Hadalrun, who had been instrumental in pushing the motion forward. Vzaren's cold smile deepened as he leaned back in his seat, confident that this would be a simple, straightforward extermination. "You do realize," Cyril said, almost to himself, "that we may be making the biggest mistake of our ages." Hadalrun scoffed. "They are a primitive species, Chancellor. Nothing more than an infestation. We will remove them before they become a true threat. But we have no understanding of their full potential," Cyril warned, but the words felt like whispers in a storm. He knew it was too late. Earth would be attacked. The order had been given. The invasion fleet would soon leave, and by the time humanity knew what was happening, it would be far too late to stop it. The Shaurith Dominion's strategy was clear: a quick, decisive strike. The attack would target Earth's capital cities, decimating their defenses and leaving the human species in a state of total disarray. They believed that once humanity's major centers of power were reduced to rubble, the rest would fall in line. There would be no resistance, no struggle, just extinction. What the Council did not know, and what they would soon come to learn in horrifying detail, was that humanity was not as predictable as they assumed. As the Shaurith Dominion's armada readied itself for its journey, a single encrypted communication reached Earth's highest military command. "The attack is coming. Prepare for war." The message had come from an anonymous source, someone within the Galactic network who had seen the Council's decision and understood the impending disaster. It was the first flicker of hope for humanity. On Earth, General Marcus Kane stood in front of the war room's giant holographic display, his expression unreadable as he reviewed the incoming data. The attack was imminent. "We have 12 hours, he said to the gathered officers. "Our first priority is to get our satellites into orbit and launch as many countermeasures as possible. We need to disrupt their advance before they make landfall." But there was more, much more. Kane had intelligence that Earth's space defense systems were grossly outdated. The Shaurith ships had shields that could absorb most of Earth's traditional weaponry. What Earth lacked in firepower, they would have to make up for in creativity and sheer will. The only option was to strike back with everything they had, and pray it was enough. Just then, a voice crackled over the intercom. "General Kane, the first alien ships are already in orbit. They're deploying ground forces. The invasion had begun." The next hours were chaos. Cities fell. Earth's military scrambled to respond, but nothing could have prepared them for the scale of the destruction. The first wave of invaders cut through cities like a scythe through wheat. But as alien warships cast their deathly shadows over Earth's most iconic landmarks, something unexpected began to happen. The human response wasn't panic, it was defiance. Even as the ground trembled under the assault, Earth's survivors refused to bow. They began organizing, fighting back with every weapon, every resource, and every ounce of courage they had. The humans had been attacked, yes, but they were not helpless. And now, the galaxy would soon learn the true cost of underestimating the resilience of Earth's people. The first part ends on a powerful note, leaving the audience eager to see how humanity will respond to such overwhelming odds. The pacing and stakes ramp up, and we can feel the weight of the Council's decision bearing down on them, even as Earth begins to fight back in unexpected ways. The first wave of the alien assault hit Earth with the force of a cataclysm. A massive fleet of Shaurith warships, gleaming black and imposing, tore through the atmosphere with terrifying precision, their weapons reducing skyscrapers to rubble. The streets of New York, Paris, Tokyo, symbols of human achievement, were swallowed by explosions and firestorms. Panic swept across the globe as millions ran for shelter, unaware that the fate of humanity was about to be shaped by the most unlikely of forces, human defiance. Back in Washington, General Marcus Kane's eyes never left the screens in front of him. The damage reports flashed across his mind like a terrible rhythm. But his focus wasn't on the cities being lost. It was on the strategy. The world might be burning, but Kane knew one thing. Earth wasn't going to roll over and die. Deploy all fighter jets to Sector 7 now. He barked to his communications officer. Get our satellites up and initiate the EMP burst sequence. If we're going to make it out of this, it starts with shutting down their tech. Humanity's military had been vastly outmatched in both size and technology, but there was one thing the invaders hadn't counted on: human ingenuity. The satellites, once designed to monitor weather and space debris, were quickly repurposed into an EMP grid capable of frying the Showrith fleet's advanced systems. They were primitive, but they worked slightly. The EMP pulse would only affect a fraction of the invaders' ships, but that was enough to gain the upper hand for a critical few minutes. In the skies above Earth, humanity's fledgling space fleet took off. Nothing more than hastily constructed ships and commandeered technology from alien wreckage, but they had a fierce determination behind them. Commander Olivia Hayes, a veteran pilot, led the charge, her squadron of Earth's most advanced fighters streaking through the heavens. Her radio crackled with urgent commands as they engaged the invaders in the void of space. "We don't have the firepower to match them," Hayes muttered under her breath, watching the Showrith ships effortlessly shred through the remnants of Earth's orbital defense grid. "But we do have speed." Her squadron weaved through the alien lines, harrying the invaders with hit-and-run tactics, attacking vulnerable points in the enemy's formation. Every pass was a gamble, but it was all they had. The humans learned quickly, used their own shields and weapons against them. Showrith ships were built for overwhelming force, not evasion. While space battles raged on Earth, the survivors fought tooth and nail. In the shattered remains of London, Captain Helena Owens led a ragtag group of survivors in a desperate raid on a Showrith landing zone. The streets were a mess of rubble and burning vehicles, but Owens's team was determined to push back. Armed with scavenged alien weapons, they attacked the invaders with a vengeance, using alien energy rifles to cut down their forces. "Take out their command post now," Owens shouted as she signaled her squad to move. "We disrupt their leadership. We slow their advance." They breached the command post, sending shockwaves through the invaders' ranks. The human strike force didn't just win ground, they made the invaders question their supremacy. Back at the military command center, General Kane watched it all unfold. Earth's counteroffensive wasn't perfect, but it was enough to halt the initial wave. He could see the uncertainty beginning to spread among the Showrith commanders. For the first time, the invaders didn't have the total victory they expected. "This isn't just resistance," Kane muttered to himself, eyes burning with fierce purpose. "This is a war. A war we'll win." Though Earth's cities were being decimated, and its space defenses barely a match for the full might of the Showrith fleet, humanity wasn't finished. The true power of the human race wasn't in its technology. It was in its unwavering will to survive. The battle raged on. Earth's skies were streaked with fire as alien warships clashed with human fighters in desperate, uneven skirmishes. Ground forces were entrenched in brutal combat, pushing forward only to be pushed back again. Despite the relentless onslaught, the humans had proven one thing: they would not yield. But as cities crumbled and Earth's military fought with everything they had, General Marcus Kane knew the battle for survival was far from over. This would not be a simple victory. No, humanity had to do more than survive. They had to change the game entirely. Back in the depths of Earth's command center, Kane was reviewing incoming reports when the room was suddenly plunged into silence. A single message flashed across the central console, a message that could alter the course of the war. It was encrypted, but there was no mistaking the words when they appeared on the screen. "The attack is a diversion. You have only one chance." Kane froze, his eyes narrowing. The message was from an anonymous source within the Galactic Council itself, someone who had learned of the plot to destroy Earth. The cryptic warning came with specific instructions on how to launch a surprise counterattack. The source confirmed that the Shaurith Dominion had coordinated the strike to eliminate humanity before they became a threat. But it wasn't just the warning that caught Kane's attention. It was the implications of the source's final words. "Prepare to strike back." "Who sent this?" Kane demanded, as his top intelligence officers scrambled to verify the message's authenticity. But there was no immediate answer. All they had were the instructions, a map of the Shaurith's fleet command structure, and a strategic opening in the Dominion's defenses. It was a call to arms. Meanwhile, on the Council's homeworld, chaos had erupted in the aftermath of Earth's surprising resistance. The Shaurith Dominion was not prepared for a fight like this, not from a species so new, so seemingly weak. The galactic leaders convened in an emergency session. Tensions ran high. The Shaurith representatives were furious, their dark eyes glowing with contempt. "We will destroy them. Now." Sauron growled, his voice trembling with rage. "This war was supposed to be easy. How could you allow this to happen?" "Peace, Xarun," the Ascari representative, Elora, said softly, her voice serene but firm. "We must not be hasty. The humans have proven resilient, yes, but they are not the threat we feared. Do not underestimate them, Elora." Sauron spat. "They are more dangerous than you think." As the argument between the Dominion and the more peace-driven members of the Council escalated, a new, unexpected voice broke through the tension. It was the voice of Colonel Ava Roberts, Earth's diplomatic envoy. She had been chosen by humanity's leadership to speak on behalf of Earth at the Council, though she had never expected to be part of this moment. Her image appeared on the main screen in the Council's chambers, standing firm in her military uniform. Enough. The chamber fell silent. Ava's voice was unwavering, clear, and filled with the weight of Earth's determination. "You attacked our home. You destroyed our cities. And you will answer for it. But I'm not here to beg for mercy. I'm here to demand something." Elora raised an eyebrow. "And what is that?" Ava's eyes were fierce, her voice cold as steel. "I'm not here to negotiate for our survival. We're negotiating for control. You wanted a war, Shaurith. Then prepare for one. Earth will not be silenced, and we will not be destroyed." The Council stared at her in stunned silence. No one had expected such a bold declaration from a species so young and supposedly powerless. But Ava was unyielding. "We will not fall. And the next time you attack Earth," her voice hardened, "you will regret it." Ava's words reverberated throughout the chamber, leaving the Council frozen in disbelief. They had underestimated humanity's resolve. They had no idea what they had just unleashed. Back on Earth, the message was clear. Humanity was no longer just defending its home. They were ready to take the fight to the stars. The tension between the Galactic Council and Earth was no longer a distant, theoretical concept. The invasion, the battles, the confrontations, they had all led to this moment. Humanity was no longer just a target in the eyes of the galaxy's most powerful races. They were now a force to be reckoned with, and the Shaurith, the ones who had led the charge against Earth, were beginning to realize just how deep their mistake had run. Back at Earth's command center, General Marcus Kane and his team were already preparing their next moves. The decrypted message from the Galactic Insider had given them the blueprint to strike at the heart of the Shaurith's fleet command structure. It was a daring plan, one that could either cripple the invaders or see humanity wiped out entirely. But for Kane, there was no turning back. The stakes had escalated beyond simple survival. This was now about taking the fight to the heart of the enemy. "We've got one shot at this," Kane said, his voice low and filled with determination as he stared at the holographic map of the Shaurith fleet. "Their command ship is heavily protected, but this vulnerability, this is our window. If we hit it hard enough, we can cripple their operations across the board." Dr. Rachel Mendez, the scientist who had been reverse engineering the alien technology, nodded. It's risky, but the intel checks out. We can deploy our new EMP array with a series of decoy drones to draw their attention away from the main attack. Kane's eyes narrowed. Good. And once the EMP takes out their shields, we follow up with the full strike. I want every fighter we've got in the air, and I want them now. Meanwhile, on the Shalrith War Council, things were unraveling. Darun, the Dominion's fierce representative, paced the room furiously. His frustration was palpable as the latest reports from the front lines flooded in. Humans had not only withstood the initial assault, they had fought back. We underestimated them. Sauron growled, his dark eyes glowing with contempt. We should have obliterated their resistance while we had the chance. Now they're fighting back with everything they have. Perhaps it is time to reconsider. Elora, the Asgari representative, said quietly. We still have the upper hand, Sauron, but pushing for a total destruction may not be the wisest course. These humans, they're proving far more resilient than we anticipated. Sauron turned to her, a look of scorn on his face. Resilient. They are insects, annoying insects. If we don't wipe them out now, they'll become a true threat. The galaxy will remember their defiance. We cannot allow that. But even as Scarron spoke, there was a growing unease among the other members of the council. The Shalrith were ruthless, but their victory was slipping through their fingers. Earth was not behaving as any other species had in the face of annihilation. It was becoming clear to some that humanity was no longer just defending itself. They were fighting to dominate. Back on Earth, the preparations for the strike were in full force. Kane watched from the command center as fighter pilots lined up their ships, the last-minute checks echoing through the air. Commander Olivia Hayes was already at the front, her squadron ready to launch. This is it, Hayes said, her voice steady but filled with purpose. Time to show them what happens when you really piss off Earth. A moment of quiet resolve hung in the air. For all the destruction humanity had suffered, for all the uncertainty they had faced, one thing was clear: the human spirit could not be broken. At that moment, as the last of the human forces prepared for the strike, General Kane addressed the room. This is no longer about survival, he said, his voice strong and unwavering. This is about showing the galaxy that we will not be intimidated. We will not bow. We will rise. And we will make them regret underestimating us. The strike was launched. As the EMP pulse pulsed through the Shalrith fleet's defenses, the ships that had once seemed invulnerable flickered. The human drones did their job, drawing fire and attention away from the main assault. Then, like a wave of fury, Earth's remaining forces surged forward. The first salvo of fighter jets screamed through space, their weapons primed and their targets locked. The Shalrith command ship, once thought impenetrable, was now vulnerable. Kane's voice rang through the comms. Target the core. All units, full attack. This is our moment. And Earth's fury descended. The Shalrith command ship loomed large in the void of space, a monolithic behemoth surrounded by layers of protective shields and heavy defenses. But even the most impenetrable walls had their cracks. General Marcus Kane watched through the command center's monitors, his heart pounding as the first wave of Earth's fighter jets closed in. He could feel the tension in the room. Every member of the military team holding their breath, waiting for the moment they'd all been preparing for. Commence attack, Kane ordered, his voice steady, but carrying the weight of everything riding on this moment. Up in space, Commander Olivia Hayes and her squadron of pilots wasted no time. They had drilled for this, practiced for this very moment. The EMP pulse, still rippling through the Shalrith fleet, had bought them just enough time to break through the alien defenses. Their ships darted through the chaos, guided by desperation, and the sheer will to strike back. Stay sharp, people, Hayes transmitted to her squadron. We've got one chance to make this count. No hesitation. As the Shalrith command ship began to falter under the EMP's effects, the shields flickered, their once imposing force fields now compromised. Earth's fighters unleashed their full payload, missiles and energy blasts raining down on the enemy ship like a storm. Each strike hit with precision, each explosion marking a small victory. But just as it seemed the tide was turning, the Shaurith began to retaliate. Their remaining forces, furious at the damage being done, launched a counteroffensive. Alien ships surged forward, and the void was filled with beams of energy that tore through human ships with deadly efficiency. The fight was far from over, and Earth's forces were vastly outnumbered. "Pull back," Hayes shouted, dodging an incoming barrage of plasma fire. "Get out of the line of fire and regroup. We can't afford to lose any more fighters." Despite the chaos, the humans pressed on. Earth's fighters evaded, weaving in and out of fire, hitting strategic weak points in the Shaurith ships, where the alien technology showed signs of failure from the earlier EMP blast. Kane had been right. The Shaurith were underestimating human adaptability. In the depths of the Shaurith command ship, the alien commanders were scrambling. The unexpected strength of humanity's counterattack had shaken their confidence. Zaran, the Shaurith's most fanatical leader, watched the unfolding destruction through his massive command monitor, his claws digging into the armrests of his chair. "This cannot be happening," he hissed, his voice trembling with rage. No species, especially not one so primitive, should have the capacity to fight back like this. Alora, the Asgari representative, was equally shaken. "We've miscalculated. Sauron, the humans, they don't fight like we do. They fight with everything they have. They're nothing," Sauron growled, but even his voice lacked the confidence it once had. He could feel the balance of the battle slipping from their grasp. On Earth, the clock was ticking. Each passing minute bought them more time, more hope. Kane's plan was working. The EMP had crippled the Shaurith's ability to respond effectively, and their command structure was in disarray. But this was only the beginning. The next phase of their attack had to be executed flawlessly. "Get me the fleet," Kane ordered. "We're pushing for the kill. All ships, follow my lead." Back on Earth's surface, the global leaders watched in stunned silence as the reports came in. The Shaurith were reeling. The impossible had happened. Humanity wasn't just surviving. They were winning. The tide was turning. But no victory ever comes without a cost. As Earth's forces struck the final blow against the Shaurith command ship, General Kane knew the battle was far from over. The Shaurith had underestimated humanity's resilience, but the true war, the one for the future of the galaxy, was just beginning. The fight was about to get even bigger. The Shaurith command ship, once a towering fortress of alien might, now drifted in the void, riddled with explosions and broken shields. Earth's fighters circled it like vultures, picking apart its defenses with precision strikes. The Shaurith were reeling, unable to recover from the coordinated assault. In the command center back on Earth, General Marcus Kane felt the weight of the moment settle over him. They had pierced the heart of the enemy's fleet, but he knew better than to believe victory was within reach. "Not yet. Keep the pressure on," Kane barked, his voice sharp, urgent. "We've cracked their command ship, but they've still got the fleet. Don't let up." On the battlefield, Commander Olivia Hayes and her squadron were executing flawless hit-and-run tactics, their fighters streaking through space with deadly grace. But the alien forces weren't done yet. While many of their ships were in disarray, the remaining Shaurith vessels were now retreating to regroup. The fight was far from over. Hayes's voice crackled over the comms. "General, we're running low on fuel and ammunition. We can't keep this up forever." "We're almost there," Kane replied, eyes glued to the screen. He could see the alien ships beginning to withdraw, but he knew that once they regrouped, they would come back in full force. It was time for the final strike. "Prepare for Phase 2, he ordered, his voice unwavering. "Activate the planetary defense grid." Down on Earth, the newly retrofitted planetary defense grid hummed to life. Earth's last line of defense, A network of massive ion cannons, satellite disruptors, and antimatter warheads had been hastily constructed using both human ingenuity and salvaged alien tech. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough to give humanity a fighting chance. The plan was simple. Use the grid to buy enough time to destroy the remnants of the Shaurith fleet and prevent them from retreating. But there was a problem. The grid's power was limited. If it fired at full strength, it would deplete all remaining resources, leaving Earth vulnerable to a counterattack. Kane had authorized it anyway. The risk was too great. They had to finish this. Now, the ion cannons fired first, massive beams of energy slicing through the vacuum of space. The Shaurith ships, still reeling from the earlier assault, were caught off guard. One by one, the alien ships exploded, their hulls cracking under the weight of the blasts. Yet not all of them fell. Some managed to retaliate, sending waves of fire toward Earth's defense stations. "Incoming," yelled one of the officers in the command center. The monitors flashed as enemy fire pounded Earth's orbital stations. "Divert all power to shields," Kane ordered, his voice steady despite the chaos. "We hold them here, no matter what." The human defenses were beginning to show signs of strain. The energy blasts from the Shaurith were relentless. The final phase of the battle had turned into a race against time. Earth's forces had successfully pierced the Shaurith command ship's armor, but at a great cost. Each shot from the planetary grid drained resources, and every minute that passed brought the remaining alien ships closer to regrouping. But Kane wasn't done. As Earth's forces endured the enemy's counterattack, he locked eyes with Dr. Rachel Mendez, who had been working tirelessly on the alien technology. "Is the bomb ready?" Mendez nodded. "It's ready, General. But it's a one-shot deal. Once we launch it, we have to be prepared for the consequences." Kane looked back at the battlefield. The Shaurith fleet was retreating, but there was no guarantee they would stay down for long. The bomb would be their final strike. Either it would destroy the Shaurith for good, or it would draw them into an all-out retaliatory war. "We do this," Kane said with grim determination, "and we end it. For good." Far above the shattered cities of Earth, the final moments of the battle were playing out. The Shaurith had underestimated humanity's will, its ingenuity, and its drive to survive. But now, the humans were taking their final gamble, the last card in their hand. As Earth's forces closed in for the final blow, General Kane could only pray it would be enough. This part escalates the tension further, as Earth's military makes its final push to end the battle while risking everything with the planetary defense grid and the desperate decision to deploy a one-shot weapon. The sense of urgency is palpable, and the stakes are raised. Humanity is nearing its breaking point, but it's pushing forward with a final, all-or-nothing strike. The story is on the brink of a major turning point, where victory or defeat will be decided. The final push was underway. General Marcus Kane stood at the heart of Earth's command center, his eyes fixed on the screens in front of him. The Shaurith fleet had been severely damaged, but the remaining ships were still dangerous. With the planetary defense grid straining under the barrage of enemy fire, humanity's final strike was imminent. Kane felt the weight of every decision, every life at stake, but there was no turning back. The bomb was their last chance. Dr. Rachel Mendez, her face drawn with exhaustion, approached Kane, holding a sleek alien device that hummed with energy. "It's ready," she said, her voice steady but strained. "Once we launch this, we're committed. The Shaurith command structure will be decimated, if it works." Kane nodded, though his mind was heavy with the consequences. "I know. If this fails, Earth will be wide open to their retaliation. But if it succeeds, if we can hit their central fleet from this close range, we can cripple them for good." He turned to his officer. "Launch the bomb." The countdown began. Above Earth's atmosphere, the battle reached its fever pitch. The planetary defense grid was holding the Shaurith at bay, but the alien forces were regrouping. Their ships, though damaged, were powerful enough to launch a final, all-out assault. In the sky, Earth's fighter squadrons fought desperately to defend their home, buying precious seconds for the bomb to reach its target. "Here they come," Commander Olivia Hayes shouted into her comms as she maneuvered her fighter through a series of laser bursts. Her squadron was low on fuel and ammunition, but they pressed on, refusing to back down. "We've got to hold them off just a little longer. Keep them off the bomb's trajectory." Kane's voice crackled over the comms. "We're running out of time." In the darkness of space, the bomb, an advanced device using a combination of human and Shaurith technology, sped toward the heart of the Shaurith fleet. It was a one-in-a-million shot, a strike designed to bypass the alien ship's remaining defenses and detonate in their command center. As the bomb reached its target range, the Shaurith realized too late what was happening. They scrambled to retaliate, their ships charging forward in an attempt to intercept the device. But it was too late. The bomb's payload, a fusion of electromagnetic pulse and antimatter, had been set to detonate on a calculated timer. A blinding flash of light consumed the vacuum of space. The explosion was cataclysmic. A wave of energy rippled outward, and for a moment, everything went silent. The Shaurith fleet, once the epitome of technological might, was reduced to debris. Their command ship, the heart of their military strategy, was annihilated, and dozens of warships were torn apart by the blast. The remaining Shaurith vessels, already battered from the earlier attacks, were now left in disarray. On Earth, the command center erupted in cheers, but the celebration was short-lived. Kane's expression was somber as he watched the unfolding devastation in space. The job wasn't finished, not yet. The Shaurith might have lost their fleet, but there were still pockets of resistance scattered across the galaxy. Kane turned to his team. "We've done it, but we need to prepare for the fallout. The Council will retaliate, and the Shaurith won't go down without trying to reclaim their power. This war isn't over." Across the galaxy, the Galactic Council watched in stunned silence as the Shaurith were reduced to ashes. The humans had done the unthinkable. They had not only resisted their invaders, they had broken the Shaurith's dominance in one devastating strike. Elora, the Asgari representative, leaned forward, her eyes narrowed. "We underestimated them," she muttered, her voice low. "The humans are not just survivors. They are now a force to be reckoned with." Zarun, the Shaurith leader, his face twisted in fury, seethed. "This is not over. The humans will pay for this." But even he knew that this loss had irrevocably altered the balance of power. The galaxy would never be the same again. As the dust settled, humanity stood victorious, for now. But the war was far from over. Earth had become a symbol, not just of defiance, but of a new, rising power in the galaxy. The question was no longer whether humanity would survive, but what would they become in the aftermath? The aftermath of the Shaurith defeat echoed through space and Earth alike. The galactic map had changed overnight. What had once been the unquestioned domain of the Shaurith Dominion was now a shattered empire. Their fleet, their command, their hopes of conquest, all obliterated in a single brilliant flash. And at the center of it all stood humanity, a species that had risen from the ashes of a near destruction to strike a blow that had rocked the entire galaxy. Back on Earth, the celebrations were tempered. People cheered in the streets, their voices raised in triumph, but it was a victory marked by grief and resolve. Hundreds of cities lay in ruins, and the cost in human lives had been staggering. The war had not been won without sacrifice. General Marcus Kane stood in the command center, gazing at the holographic displays, his face etched with weariness. "We did it," Commander Olivia Hayes said quietly, standing beside him. "We turned the tide." Kane nodded but didn't respond immediately. His mind was elsewhere, on the next phase of the war, the inevitable consequences of this victory. The Shaurith were far from finished. They had lost their fleet, but their desire for vengeance would be relentless. And then there was the Galactic Council, The fragile peace that had once existed between the galaxy's superpowers had been shattered. Earth had made an enemy of the most powerful force in the galaxy. What came next? His thoughts were interrupted by Dr. Rachel Mendez, who had joined them in the command center. She held up a data pad, her expression serious. "General, we've decrypted more messages from the Shaurith archives. They're mobilizing remnants of their forces on distant planets. There are rumors the Shaurith aren't just planning for a counterattack. They're making alliances. The Dominion's allies are starting to move." Kane's brow furrowed. "How soon?" "We don't have exact timelines yet, but we're looking at a rapid buildup. The Shaurith might be down, but they're not out," Mendez warned. "This could be the start of a larger galactic war." Kane stared at the monitor, his eyes darkening. "We're not done. Not by a long shot." Across the galaxy, the reactions to humanity's rise were swift. The Galactic Council, still reeling from the loss of the Shaurith fleet, had convened an emergency session. The Asgari representative, Elora, had been one of the few council members to argue for a more measured response to the human threat. But now her voice was drowned out by the growing war cries of the other members. "We cannot allow this insolence to continue." Feharan rage, his voice full of venom. "The humans will pay for this. We will not rest until their world is crushed beneath our boots." Elora, ever calm, spoke up. "We must tread carefully." Zaran, "The humans have shown they are willing to stand up to the might of the Shaurith. We cannot underestimate them. This war has changed the fabric of the galaxy. It's not just about revenge anymore. We need to understand who the humans are before we act." But the Shaurith's allies were already moving. The Tahlar, a race known for their brutal tactics and vast, star-spanning empire, had sent their emissaries to the Shaurith's remaining strongholds. Other factions, the militaristic Varen and the shadowy Sulkash, were gathering their forces as well. The galaxy was about to erupt into something much larger than the humans could have imagined. On Earth, the government leaders gathered, watching the unfolding galactic dynamics with increasing concern. Earth had won the battle, but they could not afford to rest on their laurels. Kane had seen what came next. The Shaurith's allies would come for them, and the Council would be out for vengeance. But one thing was certain: humanity was no longer the underdog. In his mind, Kane heard the voice of Commander Hayes echoing from earlier. "We turned the tide." And that was exactly what Earth had done. The galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had proven that they would not just survive, they would thrive. Their victory had been a catalyst, and now they would need to decide what kind of future they wanted to create. The stakes had been raised. The fight for survival had turned into a fight for dominance, and the humans were prepared to face it head-on. The war was far from over. In the darkness of space, amid the ruins of the Shaurith fleet, the stars burned bright. And for the first time, they did not just shine for the old powers of the galaxy. They burned for humanity, for a species that had declared it would no longer be anyone's prey. The future of the galaxy had just begun.